President Biden's meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on the heels of a pivotal 2-hour call with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday amid rising tensions in Eastern Europe. Biden and Zelensky discussed a strategic diplomatic resolution to the perilous conflict. The exact details of what was on that call are still unknown. A Russian troop buildup on the border with Ukraine has intensified concerns about a potential Russian military invasion of its neighbor to the west. ABC News political director Rick Klein is joining us now with his insight. And Rick, we were just listening a little bit there to Jen Psaki, who was getting questions, including by our White House correspondent Mary Bruce, about that conflict. What do we know now about, following the Russian-Ukraine border dispute? I know that you've been watching it very closely, but what do we know about today's call and also about that earlier call with Putin? Do we know more?
What we know is that the Ukrainians have been warning now publicly, privately, any way they can, about what it would mean to have a Russian invasion. They are not equipped to deal with the massive troops that are right now at their border, and they are afraid that there is an invasion that's being planned. Now, there's been no indications that Putin is moving in one direction or the other. We know from the conversation and the readout we got from both sides earlier in the week that President Putin, President Biden laid out their differences of opinion on this. President Biden, his firm opinion that there should not be any kind of resolution to this that isn't diplomatic, that there will be severe consequences, economic consequences, that is. Military consequences are another matter, and that's where I think Zelensky is looking for U.S. assurances that he may or may not be getting from President Biden today about how the American side would respond. Are we willing to get into a shooting war with Russia over Ukraine is the central question. And clearly the Ukrainians have an interest in this, and it's wrapped up also in their efforts to join NATO, which is something the Russians don't want. But is that something that that President Biden is prepared to gamble? Is that something he's prepared to put on the line? I don't think that's clear yet today, Kenneth.
And Moscow has denied the existence of any plans to invade, instead shifting the blame to Ukraine, alleging the nation is conducting a military buildup of its own in order to lower the temperature on that tension. What is Russia asking for specifically here?
Well, both things are true right now, that all of the troop movement is on the Russian side of the border, but it's also true that the aggression is being shown by that very buildup. Look, the Russians have long maintained, Putin in particular, that the West should not be bringing Ukraine into its fold, that there are territorial sovereignty issues. There's things to do with the history of Russia that would suggest that they can do what they would like to do. And he's been moving in that direction for years now. Whether he acts on it, though, becomes the big question, and whether this is a provocation, an attempt to get attention, maybe take advantage of a president who's a bit wounded politically. All of those things are possibilities still heading into a very tense winter.
And as we were listening to Jen Psaki there, Rick, she was saying that, look, I'm not a spokesman for the Kremlin here. As she talks about the U.S. position on these demands, can you talk about how important this issue is for the Biden presidency?
Look, it's a major test of President Biden. President Biden recognizes that he's known Russia, he's known Putin for a long time, and anything involving Russia, Ukraine, these are charged political items. President Biden may have made it a little more difficult for himself in other handlings of tense relationships, in the pipeline issue, among others. And right now, the recognition, I think, in the whole foreign policy establishment among Democrats and Republicans that Putin is testing out a president who's been doing this for about a year now and had a lot of tough talk for how he would handle Putin. But how far is he willing to go? And I think Biden is being put on the line here. The conversation earlier in the week, very long conversation, a very tense conversation by all accounts. And now to work the Ukrainian side of the ledger is also important. This is now we're talking about a U.S. ally. All of the complications of the Biden family and the efforts during the impeachment, the first impeachment trial that came out about President Trump's efforts to try to involve them, all of that leaving it to the side. Ukraine has a huge strategic interest in maintaining a good relationship with the United States, and President Biden needs to know that he's got someone in President Zelensky who he can trust.
Rick, is there even more pressure on Biden considering, his year serving as vice president under the Obama administration? And the Obama administration was criticized for its handling of Russian aggression when it comes to Crimea, also Ukraine. So is there even more pressure for a Biden presidency to get this under control?
I think that's right, Kenneth. I mean, I think the foreign policy wags at the White House take this on its own and recognize it as a challenge on its own, but there is history here. And it's important history if you're Putin, who's now been around for, what, 3 or 4 different presidents and is able to wait him out because of his control on power there. It's also a history on the part of the United States that has been filled with lots of stops and starts in attempts to try to get a better relationship with Russia, only to have us slap back. So we're at a lower point now, one of the lower points since the Cold War in terms of the U.S. relationship. Knows that. He also knows there was so much else on his plate with COVID, with the domestic economy, with his agenda, with China just this week announcing the diplomatic boycott of the Olympics, that it's a time that it's easy to get distracted. And with regard to the Russians, it's not something that you can really afford to do.
And Rick, before you go, taking a look at COVID and politics here, we know that at federal COVID mandates, 2 Democratic senators are now on the record saying they disagree with President Biden's requirement that most private sector workers get vaccinated. Tell us who they are and what's their claim here.
Yeah, Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia, Senator John Tester from Montana. You'll notice that both of those states are pretty conservative, pretty rural states also. And in the case of both men, they feel like that vaccines are good and they should be encouraged. But the idea of telling the private sector what it has to do is something that they're resisting. And I think that's actually a significant vote, Kenneth, even though this is not going to change policy. The House won't take this up, and President Biden would veto it anyway. But you're seeing more and more Democrats, I think, with some unease around the idea of vaccine requirements, particularly regarding private sector workers. This is now caught up in multiple court challenges, and we've seen the White House back off on some of its threats with regard to federal workers. But the political climate, to my mind, has undeniably changed. There are fewer Democrats who are willing to stand firmly behind the idea of COVID mandates, either as a policy matter, of something that's going to help get people vaccinated, or a political matter, trying to defend why it is that the government should be telling private businesses what to do.
All right, big thanks to our ABC News political director, Rick Klein. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.